So there has been a lot of S12s in the past few years. You got your original S12 that kind of broke the market, and then the Pro version, and then the Z12 after that. All very similar in their overall sound with, slight adjustments in the bass and treble here and there, and all of them having that noticeable planar timbre. The 2024 S12 on the other hand is the most refined out of all of them. On the planar timbre scale, at the very top, like the most, natural, that's where I would put the S08 and the S15, both having, the most natural tuning and the least quote-unquote planar like. And then, near the bottom, near the end, you have the Z12 and then the original S12 and then the Pros. The 2024 edition in that context falls right underneath the S08 and the S15 and a step ahead of all the other LETSHUOER planars and a little bit better than them in terms of the timbre. Because the main nitpick people had with the other S12s was that they just had a little bit too much energy, which makes the lightness and the sharpness of the planar driver even more noticeable, even more like quote-unquote planar-like. Let's sure try to address this with the S15 and the S08 by doing like the polar opposite of what they're tuning before, which is just taking like a chunk out of the upper mids and the treble, which helps improve like the overall timbre, making it like less sharp, less light, and a little bit more natural, or closer to a dynamic driver. But at the same time, those changes also brought up some nitpicks, as some people felt them to be a bit too like relaxing and borderline, a little bit boring, since the S15 was more neutral, and then the S08 is on the tamer side and like pretty dark with like almost like no treble. Well, not no treble, but just like very dark. But the 2024 edition addresses those nitpicks and combines the good timbre from the S08 and the S15 with the liveliness from the other S12s and strikes a very nice balance. It doesn't have too much treble like the other S12s, which really makes the planar nature very obvious, but the 2024 S12 also doesn't have like that gimped like upper mids and treble, and just has enough treble extension and upper mids extension to be like a little bit more fun. It's more exciting than the S15 and the S08, but also not like shouty and not as like fatiguing as the S12s, making it a very great all-rounder set. I didn't notice much of the lightness and energy or the planarness like I do with the other S12s and the other planars like the original Timeless, the T10s, the Planar, the F1 Pros, and like the Heyday. The dip around 3K and after 10K helps remove a lot of the fatigue and the air that usually affects the no way, making it a little bit lighter while still being extended enough, as it's followed up by the 5K and the 15K rise afterwards. But this does mean treble detail does take a slight hit when you compare to like the other S12s, because it's still using the same driver but just less highlighted when it comes to the treble. However, the trade-off to that is the 2020 version is now just much smoother. It's less shouty and thin. It's not as like floaty, you could say, and it's just more enjoyable in terms of the tuning. Low end wise, the impact on the 2024 S12 also feels heavier due to just like removing a lot of the air from the treble, as well as like shifting the overall focus from like the treble onto the bass more. Again, just a little bit more balance, and obviously it's not gonna beat a dynamic driver when it comes to the tactility and the slam, but there's a good amount of low end to be satisfying. You get a good and tight rumble in the sub bass, with the separation in the mid bass being one of its stronger points because planar speed is very good. And the 2024 version overall is just an improvement when it comes to the overall no weight compared to the previous S12s. Now, as for some potential things you should look out for, number one, the 3K region is scooped out, at least my unit. I saw some other people's unit and they seem like more fine. I don't know what happened to mine, but the vocal gain is like shifted towards the earlier rise, like in the 1K instead. But by shifting it towards the 1K more, it does bring the vocals closer, but without like the extra, I guess, Harmon shout that people don't like when it comes to the boosted 3K. The vocals feel heavier now and not as floaty as the other planars, but at the cost of slight nasaliness, and doesn't feel as open and extended as it could be if you had the 3K filled in. The vocals are still enjoyable since like after 5K the extension comes back with that airiness and like the transients in the end notes. But if you are like a Harmon kind of guy, you like that traditional vocal type of sound, then maybe go for something else, because you might find the 3K to be a little bit jarring. Now versus the Canta feels evidently lighter when it comes to no weight and like brighter as well. It has a lot more treble detail. It's a little bit more resolving as it does have that extra air and a shimmeriness vibe to the overall sound. But in terms of like the timbre, the 2024 S12 is going to be more natural when it comes to just how heavy, how grounded the note feels, and the low end also slams harder as well, and the vocals overall doesn't feel as light and pushed back. They feel more forward, they feel more powerful, but the trade-off is that The Kanta does feel like more airy and more spacious than the 2024 S12, but just not as natural. Then versus some cheaper planars like the T10, the Planar, the Earphone Pros, the 2024 S12 is more natural than them. It has better no way, it feels more grounded, and it has the similar amount of like resolution and technical performance. Basically, aside from being a collector's piece, which is only limited to 2024 units, what you're really paying for over the cheaper planars is the timbre, the note weight, and just a more refined and smoother listening experience. Because if we're talking value alone, obviously the T10 is still a value monster when it comes to like price to performance, but it is noticeably more planar-like, it's peakier, and again, not as refined as the 2024 S12. Because to me, the 2024 S12 is a more complete version of the S08, since the S08 can be a bit dark, with the upper mids cut and the vocals lacking in the final extension. It feels a little bit blunted, as well as the last bit of air in the treble is just like pretty much gone. But they are still a good option if you want something more relaxing and like super smooth. So we're like talking Explorer levels of non-fatiguing. Then the S08 in that regards is still a great deal for what it does if you want like a really smooth listening experience. But if you want something like more balanced and better all rounded with better extension in the vocals and the treble, then the 2024 S12 would be the direct upgrade in that sense, while still having a good enough timbre. And then lastly, if you're looking for something more neutral but not quite completely straight lines level of neutral like the Performer 8 or the Chino, so still like a good amount of bass and a good amount of vocal gains, but just not like too boosted in the low end and the treble and the vocals and stuff like that, then the S15 still remains as one of the cleanest and like most neutral planar that I have heard yet, with like great timbre on top. It's not going to be as sizzly, as like light and sharp as the other planars, and although it does cost $100 plus more than the 2024 edition, it is like one of like the only options you have if you want like a neutral planar, and if you want an IEM that doesn't completely like take out the upper mids and the bass while still being neutral and balanced enough. But yeah, give these a shot if you're interested. They are a collector's piece, so I mean, you can probably resell this, I don't know. But aside from that, I hope this review was helpful. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see everyone in the next one. Shout out to Rark's Cat, Dom Q, Start Buccaneers, This Call Scaldus, B_URAC, Mystic Spoon Attack, Oh Really, Walker Standard, User Ernest, Patrick, Belcel Kel, Polly J, Mr. Gorillas, Anton Risto, Gis Seng Yan, Tamat Pat Fache, Ed Dunlap, Christopher Jackson, Name, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, Ben Thompson, Franco Gomez, Haigyu 55, Asher, Wizard, Jab, Obi, iComment 87, Contain Guava Juice Gains, and Treble Well Extended. Thank you guys so much.